Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Open Championship Initial Research Show. First off, apologies for the delay. I've been working on some of my stream and video settings in the background and such. Was working on that a little bit today. Kind of lost track of time. So the layout of the camera and content on the monitor may be a little different than usual. I've been working on that, like I mentioned, so bear with me as I hope to have that done tomorrow. But if you were watching last week, I apologize. Basically, I got everything about the Scottish Open wrong. I thought it was going to play easy. It was definitely difficult. I knew the wind would be a little bit of a factor. I definitely underestimated how much of a factor. Just anything that I could have guessed or tried to determine analytically was just wrong. So I did have a couple of the Euro only players, highlighted them who had made the cut every single year at the Renaissance Club. But if that's what you're hanging your hat on, it's going to be a long week, and that's what it was for me. Now, fortunately, the Barbasol, I was pretty spot on. Was pretty high on Mark Hubbard. Didn't have Trey Mullinax, however. But such is life in this world. When you're a degenerate gambler, you're going to be right, you're going to be wrong. And I completely own that I was wrong about the Scottish. But I want to hear about you all. How did your all's weekend go with the Barbasol and the Scottish Open? Hopefully you all had a lot more success than I did. So let's get into the Open Championship, the 150th edition. We're at the Old Course, the home of golf. We're not here to belabor last week. We're going to try to move on and see if we can't improve on our performance. So all statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is simply the best tool out there. If you want anything golf statistic related, it has gambling information, it has odds and lineup generators. It's simply the best tool out there. Go check them out. It is well worth your investment. In the description to the videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I post my betting cards for the golf content that I create. You'll notice that I kind of threw just a Hail Mary for the Scottish because I wasn't too confident on how it was going to play, and it's a good thing I didn't put a lot of effort into the betting card, as I was pretty wrong. And then the Barbasol betting card was close but no cigar. That's the way it works. But if you want to see the betting cards each week for the golf content, give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then in the description as well of the video, I have mentioned that there's new content coming soon. I am still working on some things in the background as well that might be some of the camera settings and adjustments and whatnot. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open, as you can tell. We're live from the fumble through this intro. But like I mentioned, I want to hear from you all. How did your all's weekend go? Did you have Xander Schauffele? Did you use him in DFS? Did you use any of the Euros that I had mentioned? The Jamie Donaldsons, the Thomas Detries, any of those players? And then how did your Barbasol go if you played in that as well? So let's get into it. Let's do our initial research for the 2022 Open Championship. And we start with Microsoft Excel, as there is no tournament fact sheet, with this being a major, a Euro Tour predominant event. We just don't have a GCSIA tournament fact sheet. Hopefully this is a little bit easier to see. I know I've been hearing from some of you that some of the data can get fairly difficult to see. So unfortunately, you're going to have to deal with a little bit of a bigger picture of me for the moment until I get all of the settings perfectly adjusted. But we start in Excel because of the no tournament fact sheet, and this is per Pro Visualizer. We're not going to go through hole by hole tonight of the Old Course. It is pretty famous. If you don't know a lot about it, by all means, I will be glad to give you some overview or some basics about it. But pretty much the most famous course in golf. It's the home of golf. the old course at St. Andrews. I had it on the proximity. Apologies. This is the whole composition chart that is normally in Pro Visual, or normally in Fantasy National. Now, Fantasy National does have a course breakdown, but it is wildly inaccurate for the scorecard for reasons that I don't know or don't understand. So I needed to bring in the whole yardages from Pro Visualizer. So that's what I have here. The old course is a par 72 that's measuring right at 7,300 yards. I think it's a couple yards under, but 7,300 yards, par 72. The interesting thing is there's only 2 par 3s and there's only 2 par 5s, so you have 14 par 4s. I've played this course hundreds of times on PlayStation Tiger Woods. How you doing, P? Hope your weekend went well. It was a lot better than mine. As I mentioned in the intro, I just basically got nothing about the Scottish Open right. So hopefully you took a little bit of an advantage of the Euro-only players that I mentioned, like Thomas Detry, Donaldson, some of those types, and completely ignored everything else because I was just wrong. But the Barbasol was okay. Had a good, nice little Sunday sweat with Mark Hubbard. He didn't end up pulling through, but I felt pretty okay about it. MLB has been good. Well, good, very good. I know I had mentioned that I was going to do some baseball shows this week. That is going to be discontinued. I am working on some other content, but I think it's going to be easier on me if I just remove those baseball shows because it was just taking up too much of my time. But anyway, coming back to the aforementioned old course where you play a bunch on PlayStation, 14 par 4. So clearly that's going to be one of the big focal points this week, along with wind, everything else. And I haven't even brought up Wind Finder. Like I said, I've been working on stream settings most of today. But the 2 par 3s here at the old course are between 175 and 200. So one measures at 190 and one measures at 181. So only 2 par 3s. They're both in this range. Probably take a look at that a little bit, but especially in the Data Dive show. And then I'm going to skip the par 4s. We'll come to the par 5s. You've got a very short par 5 at 546 yards, and you've got a long par 5 that on the scorecard measures 604. Depending on when, it can play a whole lot longer and it can play a whole lot shorter. But by scorecard yardage, those are the 2 par 5s. So now we come to the crux of the course, essentially the 14 par 4s. And this is a bit misleading, this 0 to 350. It can be drivable, but it is certainly not advisable. It is a 349 yard par 4. It's the 9th. Again, I hate to use the term risk reward because really the hole does not set up to be a drivable par 4, but if the wind is in perfect setting, it can be for the pros. But generally speaking, it is a forced layup and then short wedge in. But anyway, so you have one very short par 4 at 349 yards. You have 6 par 4s that measure from 350 to 400. And these holes can vary wildly. You've got something as short as 352, and you have something that is long as a 387. Quick look here. Yeah, 387. So definitely more on the shorter end, but probably nothing that falls too much into this bucket here. But a lot of short par 4s, but that doesn't mean this course is easy. It is Scotland. The winds are going to be up. It's a major. It's just a fun course, and it proves that length, that the course doesn't have to be hard just because of length. You can set up a great golf course with short yardages as long as it's designed well, which is what the old course is. But anyway, so 6 par 4s between 350 and 400. You've got 3 each from 400 to 450 and 450 to 500. And then you have one long par 4 that measures at 500 yards on the scorecard. So there is a look at the whole composition chart that is normally in Fantasy National. Again, I'm having to do this due to some of the issues on foreign courses in Fantasy National. But there's a look at the course composition or whole composition. We'll definitely be taking a look at this range of par fours, the 2 par threes that fall into this range, so on and so forth. And then here's the estimated proximity chart that, again, usually comes in Fantasy National. This is gathered from Pro Visualizer, so again, I don't want to have this be set in stone that you should take a look at these yardages specifically. But you do have 2 legitimate 75 to 100 yard approach shots. Again, the aforementioned 349 yard par 4 that in the perfect case scenario, wind and tee and all that, could be drivable. But you do have that short approach, and then there's another fairly short approach on a short par 4. You have about 5 that come from 100 to 125. 125 to 150 has a couple. 150 to 175, and then the 2 par 5s I definitely put in here, as most of the time the professionals will try to go for the green unless the weather conditions just mandate that you don't. But that is what these 2 are, is the 2 par 5s. Now, if the par 5s truly aren't attackable, especially the long one, the 604, then you definitely want to put one of these into the 75 to 100. But for the most part, the approach shots here at St. Andrews are going to come in the shorter distances, say 100 to 125, maybe some 125 to 150, 150 to 175. But for being only a 2 par 5 course, and the course still plays to 7,300 yards, so it is not short by any means. A lot of great designed short par 4s in there. But there's a look at the estimated proximity or approach shot distribution per Pro Visualizer. So with that, I'm going to now move to Fantasy National. And again, as I mentioned, some of these settings I'm working on, so hopefully they're still readable. I'm definitely going to have, it's definitely going to be adjusted throughout the week as I prepare for some of my other content that's coming out. But anyway, so here is the open field as of now. I'm going to come to this aforementioned course breakdown in Fantasy National, and this is why I had to bring in the whole yardages from Pro Visualizer. For whatever reason, Fantasy National just has these listed at 476, and that's the case with any of these old, I guess Royal Troon they have. I don't know, for whatever reason, St. Andrews is listed like this. So that's why I had to get the whole yardages. But anyway, this is accurate though, the difficulty to par. So you see the 10th most difficult hole is right at par. 9th is a bit over par, so it's going to play a little bit on the more difficult end. It's a major championship, and it's going to play difficult. I might even add some difficult in my mixed condition model, but that isn't to say there isn't scoring opportunities. For example, that short par 5, that's 546 yards. It plays to almost a half a shot under par, and is a decent enough eagle rate for a par 5. So there are definitely scoring opportunities here. That short 349 yard par 4 that I talked about. Sometimes it can be drivable. It is playing to almost or a little bit more than a quarter shot under par. So definitely can be attacked. The famous 18th with the swale, it plays to in between 3 and 4/10ths of a shot under par. So there are scoring opportunities on this course. However, it can play very, very difficult. The road hole, the famous road hole, in between 6 and 7/10ths of a shot over par. 3/10 over par, quarter of a shot over par. So big numbers here in a hurry at the old course. Average strokes gained by hole by par, again, with only 2 par 3s and 2 par 5s, these numbers are going to be a little bit skewed, but you can see the par 3s just kind of don't matter. As you move up the leaderboard, maybe they get a little bit more significant, but I mean, we saw this with the Barbasol. I mean, even at the Barbasol, the par 3s just do not matter. They do not matter. And then you see the par 4s and the 5s. Par 5s slightly outweigh the par 4s for the winners here at the old course. But for the top 5s, you see just how important the par 4s can be. There's 14 par 4s. We're definitely going to be taking a look at that. And then for the top 10s. So par 4s and 5s. The par 5s are getting buffeted a little bit by that aforementioned very scoreable, attackable par 5 on the front. The other one is certainly not an eagle chance, but it is still scoreable. But it's only the 13th easiest hole on the course. For a par 5, that's generally that means it's not a given birdie on a par 5. So I'm very under the assumption that par 4s are going to be the big thing here this week. We can't really do the whole composition like I mentioned. That's why I had the Excel chart ready for you all. Scoring distribution, you see very few eagles, so it's basically birdies against bogeys and doubles, and you've got, let's see, 0.16 and 0.02, so it's about the same. It's saying that it's going to be average. I think it's going to be difficult just with the wind. It's a major and all that stuff, but generally speaking, scoring distribution has been average. Cut line here at the old course, 2005 was +2, +3, and then +1. So easily over par. In the +2 to +3 range, that's generally average on the PGA Tour. But we'll take a look at Windfinder, especially tomorrow, to see if we think that's going to be a major factor. Driving accuracy, very high here. That's just due to the fact that the rough, if you want to even call it rough, it's just fescue. It's just gnarly gorse shit. Players know just how much they have to find the fairway, so it is not uncommon just to see a bunch of rescue clubs or 3 irons, sometimes even 4 or 5 irons just to get in the fairway. So a lot higher driving accuracy here. Green and regulation percentage, this is going to be very deceiving. These greens are probably the biggest in the world. You've got several double greens. I know 5 and 12, 5 and 14, I think, might share a green. There's a couple of sets of double greens. These are big, so you can't really go by green and regulation percentage. That's what I was doing last week with the Scottish, in thinking that perhaps the Renaissance Club was like St. Andrews and other English style courses and focusing more on proximity. Definitely going to be focusing on proximity this week as opposed to green and regulation percentage. This is just a deceiving statistic. Scrambling, much less successful here than at the average tour event, so that is definitely something we're going to look at this week, is scrambling. And then finally, again, due to the size of these greens, 3 putts per round. I mean, this is almost, it's almost triple. You got a little bit more than a half a 3 putt per round average tour event. Here it's 1 1/4. It is just astronomical with the undulations, the size of the greens, the wind. 3 putts are a big deal here. So we're definitely going to want to look at some putting statistics and probably some 25-foot plus putting statistics to see who can lag putt really well. But there is a look at what is available in Fantasy National in terms of the course. So we'll come now to the main page of Fantasy National. The first thing I want to do, we know it's Scotland. We know it's links style golf. let's just see who plays the best in the wind, and I am going to narrow this into, let's say, let's go to the PGA Tour season. I might adjust from there, but we'll go to the PGA Tour season. So since the start of the PGA Tour season, let's see, 40 rounds, oh, plenty. We can go down to 36. Sweet. So since the start of the PGA Tour season, your top performers in windy or moderate and windy conditions, they are Justin Thomas, Cam Smith, Sung Jae, Joaquin Niemann, Cameron Young, Shane Lowry, John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Max Homa, and Mito Pereira. All right, Max Homa coming in off of a very strong Scottish Open. Let's see. Lowry didn't play. Rahm made the cut to a very clunker of a finish. Niemann was threatening for a while and then kind of fell off today, I believe. JT missed the cut. Cameron Young missed the cut. Scheffler missed the cut. Fitzpatrick played well, as you would expect. So there's a look at the top performers overall in windy conditions. While I have the windy conditions up, your top strokes gained approach players in the wind. Those are Cameron Smith, Max Homa, Victor Hovland, Russell Henley, Tom Hoge, Keegan Bradley, Justin Thomas, Hideki, Kevin Na, and Jordan Spieth. Also interesting to see some of the live guys playing this week on the backs of the lawsuit that has come out against the PGA Tour. So I don't think it's much of a surprise that happened. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, no matter what your opinion is on such matters. With the wind now, we've looked at the wind, nothing for Architect. Let's take a look at scoring difficult to par. This is going to be difficult. I firmly believe that. I thought the Scottish was going to be easy. I thought the course laid out easier. I thought I didn't think the wind was going to be much of a factor based on Wind Finder. That led to a whole lot of being fucking wrong this week. So definitely going to look at wind. Definitely going to look at difficult. So your top performers since the start of the PGA Tour season when it has been difficult. Those players are Rory, Scotty Scheffler, Matt Fitzpatrick, Sam Burns, Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Cameron Smith, Shane Lowry, Sung Jae, and John Rahm. A lot of overlap here to be expected. Let's see. Any surprises? Maybe Sam Burns, but he's been playing well lately. Let's see. Sung Jae. Okay. Chris Kirk. He doesn't get enough credit for playing difficult courses well. It's not his best, but he's okay at it. Yeah. So, good stuff there. Let's see. Anything else we might want to look at? Maybe with greens or like putting. But we'll get more specific for sure in terms of going to the... we'll definitely take a longer look into putting here a little later. But let's just do an overview here. Again, I'm going under the assumption that these are bent. I can't see them being anything other than bent. And with the Scottish Open stats not in there, I am curious to see how they rated in terms of green speeds. But you see just how few people have rounds, at least in the past calendar year, or since the PGA Tour season. So if we expand this out all the way to 2 years of PGA Tour data, I'll say September the 14th, that's a pure guess as to when the then Safeway, now Fortinet Open played. Looks like we got plenty here. I'll go ahead and do 50 rounds just to give it a more comprehensive view. So on bent greens in the past 2 PGA Tour seasons, dating back to the Fortinet of 2021, those players are Jason Kokrak, Patrick Cantley, Rory McIlroy, Christian Bezuidenhout, Seamus Power, Justin Rose, Ian Poulter, Cameron Smith, Cameron Tringale, and Keith Mitchell. All right. If we do want to bring this back in to just the one calendar year, let's see how much this changes. So now this is from going to the 2022 seasons Fortinet. Your top bent putters, Christian Bezuidenhout, Victor Hovland, Keegan Bradley, Rory, Max Homa, Ian Poulter, Keith Mitchell, Sam Burns, Justin Rose, Mark Leishman, and Paul Casey. So a little bit of overlap, but quite a bit of difference too. So I remember Keith Mitchell being there, Ian Poulter being there, Rory being there. I don't think any of these others were. Mackenzie Hughes was 11th, going back to the 2020 Fortinet. He is 18th in the recent. Cam Smith's up there. So your good putters are still putting well, but the order has changed a little bit, and some new guys have risen into the top 10 for just this season's bent green performance. So interesting stuff there. I think that's going to do it for the kind of the umbrella view or the overview type page. Not going to do it around the green because we're definitely going to look at scrambling and all that good stuff. So let's go into, I'm going to eschew birdies and bogeys for now. Let's just go into fairways and greens. Definitely going to want to take a look at driving or at fairways gained. I don't think good drives gained is going to be a good gauge this week, again, with the size of the greens that St. Andrews has. That's why I'm not even going to look at greens and regulation gained. I don't think good drives gained will be something to take a look at. Perhaps fairways in the wind. So I'm going to add the windy filter. But again, I'm still not even really all that confident doing it because the fairways are generally easy to hit here because guys are hitting irons. But when it is windy, so in moderate and windy conditions, your top fairways gained players are Abraham Ancer, John Rahm, Billy Horschel, Daniel Berger, who I believe has withdrawn. Now that I see the name, he has withdrawn from the Open due to back injury. So let's try this again. The top fairways gained players in moderate and windy conditions: Abraham Ancer, John Rahm, Billy Horschel, Joo Hyung Kim, Chris Kurt, Shane Lowry, Corey Connors, Mito Pereira, Henrik Stenson, and Zach Johnson. Good stuff there. Let's see. So in the group of guys that are top 10 in fairways when it's windy, you've got John Rahm, number one player in strokes gained off the tee in the world. Makes a whole lot of sense. But in the wind specifically, he is number 2 in fairways, number 4 in distance. Very, very good. Shane Lowry, 7th in fairways, 31st in distance. Really good. Mito Pereira, 8th and 28th. Xander, 12th and 48th. Victor Hovland, 18th and 19th. That's really darn good. So yeah, let's see. I'm going to take off the wind because these are considered easy to hit fairways. Let's go to hitting fairways easy. And let's see who has very good distance when fairways are easy. Maybe guys are able to hit 3 woods when others have to hit iron, or maybe their irons travel further than others. Let's just kind of take a look at that. So when fairways are easy to hit, your longest players in those conditions are Wyndham Clark, Rory McIlroy, Cameron Young, John Rahm, Brooks, Keith Mitchell, Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, Will Zalatoris, and DJ. In these same conditions, when fairways are when fairways are easy to hit, you have Cameron Young hits a bunch of fairways still, John Rahm, Victor Hovland, Scotty Scheffler. So these are some of the players that you really want to take a look at this week if you want to look at off the tee type metrics, whether it be wind, easy to hit fairways, maybe when there's long rough. Maybe you want to take a look at that, knowing when the rough is very penal, who can make sure they hit the fairway in long rough. A lot of different options you can go this week in terms of off the tee type metrics, but the main reason I wanted to come in here was scrambling, sand saves and scrambling. And I'm going to go ahead and just put the difficult filter on. I'm a firm believer this is going to play difficult this week. So When a round is difficult, your top sand saves gained players in the field this week since the start of the PGA Tour season: Patrick Reed, Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Thomas, Lucas Herbert, Matt Fitzpatrick, Bernd Wiesberger, Chris Kirk, Christian Bezadenhout, Keith Mitchell, Taylor Gooch, and Sam Horsfield. All right. Yeah, fair enough. I can't really add much to it. Just, it is what it is. There's your sand saves. And then let's look at scrambling. Your top scramblers when it's difficult. They are Matt Fitzpatrick, Billy Horschel, Shane Lowry, Christian Bezadenhout, Lucas Herbert, Justin Thomas, Sung Jae, Cameron Young, Abraham Ancer, and Rory McIlroy. I'll definitely be putting quite a bit of emphasis into this throughout the week. Scrambling is just going to be so darn important in the wind, when it's difficult, long, rough. I'm just looking at the difficulty right now. We're going to save a lot of that stuff for the data dive tomorrow, but do want to hit on a few things. Definitely going to want to look at proximity. So we'll look at proximity in the wind, and then tomorrow we'll really dive in and say proximity wind, proximity when it's difficult, all that good stuff. But in in moderate and windy conditions since the start of the PGA Tour season, your top total proximity gained players: Gary Woodland, Tom Hoge, Justin Thomas, Keegan Bradley, Hideki, Cameron Young, Mito Pereira, Emiliano Grillo, Justin Rose, and Cam Smith. So interesting to see Gary Woodland here. He played well for about first 2.5 days or so at the Scottish. Let's see. Hoge, no. JT, no. Hideki, no. I mean, there's two of the reasons why I failed miserably at the Scottish, along with Victor Hovland. If you watched last week, I was really high on Victor Hovland. I was really high on Hideki. That blew up in my face. So let's see. Mito ended up missing the cut after going -4 on Thursday. It was a crazy week. But there you go. There's your top proximity gain players in the wind. We'll move to par 3s and par 4s, and I think that, and definitely want to hit putting. So I'm going to remove the moderate and windy conditions. Just look at par 3s, 175 to 200. Both par 3s fall into this range. So with no filters, no anything, I am going to actually bring this into the last 36 rounds, just so we don't get a whole ton of data. We want to keep it somewhat defined. So since the start of the PGA Tour season and or the last 36 rounds, your top performers on par 3s from 175 to 200. Those players are Scotty Scheffler, Shane Lowry, Keegan Bradley, Rory, Joaquin Niemann, Xander Schauffele, Corey Connors, Christian Bezadenhout, Harold Varner III, Sam Burns, and Billy Horschel. Again, skipping Daniel Berger. He is withdrawn due to the back injury. So we'll definitely take a look at this a little bit more tomorrow, but kind of is what it is. We might want to look at par 3s, but really the two par 3s here at the old course are at 181 and 190. They're pretty much right in the middle of that range. So it might be just what we look at for par 3s. And we saw in the breakdown here that they just aren't that important either. When you only have two par 3s, it's just really not all that important. So that's a look at that. We'll take a look at par 4s very quickly. Just total strokes gained par 4. We'll really dig into par 4s tomorrow for the Data Dive show. I've got a lot of research to do around cuts made and all that stuff. But just to take a quick overview, your top strokes gained par 4 players since the start of the PGA Tour season. You got Rory, JT, Xander, Shane Lowry, John Rahm, Matt Fitzpatrick, Scotty Scheffler, Cameron Young, Tony Finau, and Hideki. All right. And then finally, I do want to take a quick look at some putting stuff here. We looked at strokes gained putting. I am definitely going to add bent. It would probably be fair to add Velcro or Velcro and or average. I'm just going to use bent for now. I'm really curious to see how Fantasy National classifies the Scottish. Open this past week. If it is Velcro, then I'm going to probably just put Velcro, but I'm still waiting to see that. All right, so a couple of different things here. We looked at strokes gained putting on bent. Let's take a look at 25 feet plus, and then 3-putt avoidance as well. So your top performers since the start of the PGA Tour season on bent greens from 25 feet plus. Those players are Danny Willett, Paul Casey, Justin Rose, Stuart Sink, Garrick Higo, Tony Finau, Terrell Hatton, JT Poston, Ian Poulter, and Brooks Koepka. Now, interestingly enough, only 2 of those guys are in the top 10 for 3-putt avoidance. And then you have one player that's 11th. So I'm going to be generous and say 3 of these guys are in the top 10 for 3-putt avoidance. So I don't know if that's telling me that they're just making a bunch of bombs or what. Because I would think 3-putt avoidance would be more important than 25 feet plus. Be curious to hear your take. Put it in the comments. Put it in chat. But your top 3-putt avoiders on bent greens since the start of the PGA Tour season. Those players are Terrell Hatton, Tony Finau, Wyndham Clark, Max Homa, Xander, Corey Connors, Keegan Bradley, Webb Simpson, Abraham Answer, and Cameron Tringali. And then Justin Rose is 11th, and he was 3rd in 25 feet plus. So I think that's really all I have for this evening, especially since, we can take a look at tournament history just to get a feel for it, but I really don't like doing that because not all of these are at the same course. The last time the old course was in St. Andrews or at St. Andrews was in 2015. So, we can take a look here, see who plays Open Championships well, but courses change. So, you've got Jordan Spieth plays them pretty well. He won in 2017, runner-up last year. Henrik Stenson won in 2016, but where's his game lately? He missed the cut last year. Of course, your defending champion, Colin Morikawa, his first time at an Open Championship. Shane Lowry in 2019. I believe that was Royal Troon? I can't remember. It was in Northern Ireland. An Irishman won it. It was a big party. Molinari in 2018. So there's a look at some of the players that have generally played well at an Open Championship. Tony Finau, 8,400, and a guy that is, at least in the past 5 years, top 30 every year. Interesting. Big Game Brooks, if you trust in Brooks. Let's see. Interesting to see here. Shane Lowry missed the cut 3 times and then win in top 15. Bobby Mack, T6, T8. I was really high on Bobby Mack at the Scottish. Makes me kind of want to jump back on the ship for the Open Championship since he played so bad. Which sounds backwards, but with him not having played well, I kind of like Bobby Mack again this week. I don't know. And then let's go to the other end of the spectrum, guys who just haven't played. Paul Lawrie is the last one you see. Where's Lawrie? Did I pass him? Okay, so I'll have to go back to the bottom. Like I said, I apologize. I've been messing with camera settings and all that stuff. So here's the other end of the spectrum, guys who have just not played Open Championships very well. You've got all your past champions here. Billy Horschel made the cut last year, but 1 for 4 overall. Sean Norris, Xander Lambard. Let's see, Ernie Els. Try to get some of the more recent. So Russell Henley here, 1 for 4. Bryson, 2 for 4. Bernd Wiesberger, 3 for 4 and making the cut, but pretty poor performances overall. Chris Kirk 0 for 2. Keith Mitchell 0 for 2. Patty Harrington, at least plays it a lot. Look at this. Ian Poulter, he's all or nothing. He's 2 for 4, but he has a top 15 and a top 30. seemingly all or nothing there. So, and then here's your list of debutantes. You got Cam Young and Seamus Power, Mito, Tom Hoagie, Joo Hyun Kim, all these guys that have not played the Open Championship. So interesting stuff there. Let's see. Anything else we might be able to take a look at? Recent results. The course breakdown, past course conditions. Let's see. If I was right, 2019 Royal Portrush. Damn. Troon was in 16. Let's see. Who won in 2015? I think, was that Zach Johnson? Okay. Okay, so what we can do, I just realized. So, yeah, 2015, St. Andrews, they are bent. Hitting fairways was easy. I actually played one round of easy, a couple of average, and a difficult. Okay. Interesting stuff there. I wonder if they have 2010. No. Okay, so there's St. Anne, Muirfield, Liverpool, and then 2015 St. Andrews. Okay. All right, I didn't realize that they had this populated. I'm glad I checked. So I feel a lot better now with the bent. They have not had much of the green speeds. They just had Velcro at Royal St. George's last year, but they don't have any of the green speeds listed. Like I said, I'd be interested to see what the green speeds were at the Scottish, because if it's Velcro, I'm pretty much going to put Velcro bent, because generally English courses have to really watch the speeds of the greens just due to the amount of wind. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this evening. Again, apologies for the delay at the start of the show working on the camera settings. Let me know in the comments, was this easier to see? Like I said, I've been trying to work on the camera settings. People have mentioned that the data can get scrunched a little bit. So is this easier to see? Is this a better format for the camera settings? Also in the comments, please let me know, how did your Barbasol, how did the Scottish Open go? Who are you thinking about for the Open Championship early in the week? Any wagers? I've already put in one wager. Who are you looking at? What storylines do you think are going to be prevalent? Do you think Xander is going to break through and win essentially 3 tournaments in a row? All that good stuff. P, thanks for jumping in chat, like you always do, supporting the show. Glad to hear that the MLB DFS is going well. I apologize that I'm going to be discontinuing that, but I do have some content upcoming. Thanks again for watching and for listening. I always appreciate the support. For all of the wagers that you had this week at the Scottish and the Barbasol, for all of the DFS contests you had this past week at the Scottish and the Barbasol. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Open Championship Data Dive Show, may all your bets be profitable.